to the In History Project. I'm your host, Norm Taylor. It's good having you back with us again, and always good to be with my friend here, Larry King, which has been connected with the museum and a vital part of our community and with the museum for several years. And Larry, whenever we get together, we talk history, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Is that because we're old, or is it because we know a little bit about history, or is it both?
Both.
Okay, it is. Yeah, Larry and I actually, our lives paralleled in some ways, Larry, because you and I both went to Dive Elementary. I didn't know that till recently. You and I both went to Oleitic High School.
Yes, we did.
And well, there it kind of ends, I guess. But
Yes.
but then we got connected again through the museum.
Yes.
Larry, I was going to say that a friend of mine, from one of the pictures that we showed last time of the Springville store.
Yes.
And by the way, folks, what this show is, this is the second part of the show that you would have seen earlier on the things that are disappearing from our lives. And so, because all these things Larry brought in, and all the pictures, well, we just couldn't get all of them in for one show, so that's why we're doing part two. So that's what this show is about again today, and thank you for your comments on the show, and that you enjoyed that, and I appreciate that very much.
And Norm, I'd like to comment here.
Mm-hmm.
When I was on their TV show a couple, 3 weeks ago, seems like after that, almost everywhere I'd go, someone would say, I saw you on TV, in the restaurants, in the nursing homes, on the streets, somebody would say that, saw you there on TV, so you must have a tremendous following and viewing audience.
Well, you know, it surprises me, but we have been. Of course, Larry, we've been around now for over 5 years, and I have to thank a lot of good people that have been able to build it. But I've had a lot of people that have been following the program, and so there's a lot of people that enjoys history and enjoys these programs, and I appreciate that very much, and hopefully we can continue to do that for a while. But I'm glad you got your 15 minutes of fame. that people notice it. So did people like the program when they don't you? They enjoyed it.
Many people says, I watch it all of the time. I really enjoy it. I heard that comment several times.
Well, I appreciate those. And people, listen, I do appreciate it. You guys, there's so many people out there going, hey, Norm, and sometimes I don't know you folks, but because I can't see you, but you're seeing me, but you say, I enjoy the program. And I do appreciate you making comments, because this gives the producer, Maria, and everybody that's on the program, this gives us feedback that you are out there watching the program, and I do appreciate that. And we're going to try to continue to bring a lot of good historical programs your way. Larry, anyway, a buddy of mine from Indianapolis, and by the way, for you people that are watching around the Indianapolis area, I didn't realize there was as many of you watching up there, but I do appreciate that too, because now you're giving me phone calls and emails, and that you're watching it. Thank you for watching it. My buddy called and he said, you know, that was my grandfather's store there in Springville, and he said, I've never seen a picture of this.
Oh, is that right?
And he said, I didn't know one existed, and he was tickled to death. And I thought, well, maybe we can make him a copy sometime, because he said he didn't even know one existed.
Yes.
So that makes me feel good when we do a show like this, and that we reveal this to people, and then I feel like we've been successful with the show, Larry.
Yes, we can copy that picture through the museum.
I appreciate that. And you used to have him, by the way, in Boy Scouts, my friend here, and we'll talk more about that later. But
would his name be Robin Byers?
Yes, it sure would be.
I thought so.
Okay, and Robin, if you're watching, I mentioned Larry mentioned you on there, but it is a good friend of mine, and he was just tickled to death to see that. You know, so. Again, people are giving me leads all the time when they see the program. They say, well, this usually leads to something else, and some interesting topic. I wish there was a lot more time where I could investigate some of these things. Don't you ever feel that way, that you just start scraping the surface, Larry?
Yes, we do.
Of what we're trying to do here. But anyway, that was a thrill to me. That you have brought again some things from the past, and Larry, what do you have? You know, let's just start somewhere on some of the things you have.
I have a few variety of items. One of them I bought, when you asked me to disappearing things, some of you may remember the old hand sickle.
Oh my.
We used to use these hand sickles many times before the weed eater came in, and this is work, and I like to think of it as a thing of the past. The weed eater is too handy today.
Yeah.
But this is a hand sickle, and it was very effective.
Very much so. And then when I saw that, Larry, again, that's one of those things that led to remembering something else. But The old hand clippers, folks. How many of you out there remember those hand clippers? My mother used to, whether I was good or not, I guess, but used to send me out there, and I had to go around the house and get on your hands and knees, and you'd clip with those hand clippers. And my goodness, that was time consuming. Yes. I am thankful for the weed eaters of today, but those hand clippers and the sickle there was used for a lot of years.
Yes, they were. Okay, the next item I have here is a pocket watch. A pocket watch is something that we really don't see much of these days. This pocket watch happened to belong to my grandfather. Oh, and my dad gave it to me, and my dad said that his dad gave it to him when he was 9 years old. And there's a crack, the face is cracked. And my dad tells me the story that when he got it, he put a shoestring around it. Everybody used to tie a shoestring around it and tie it on their belt.
Okay.
Well, he was swinging his around, and it come off and cracked the face. And then his father took it away from him till he was growing, and then he gave it back to him.
And then you ended up getting it.
And this is, I had it checked one time. It's approximately a 1900 to 1904 watch is what it is.
Well, beautiful.
So that's real nice
beautiful.
pocket watch.
Does it still work?
No, I tried it and it doesn't. No, it does not.
Well, I have actually, my father-in-law gave me years ago a couple watches. One was from the 1860s, they believe, and another one was from the 1870s. But it's hard to find anybody that can work on that type of thing. That's why I was asking. So that would be nice if we found somebody that we could get these working again.
Yes, I haven't tried to find someone to fix that.
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult, yeah.
Okay, I brought in something else here. I thought someone mentioned to me here a while back, said they had not seen a 4-foot yardstick. This is a 4-foot yardstick, and it's advertising Hitchcock Insurance Agency. And I've had this quite some time, but it's unusual.
4 foot?
4-foot yardstick.
Now, how long have you had that, Larry?
I don't know.
Several
years.
I don't want to insult you, but you are a pack rat.
Well, some people call me.
You've been called worse, have you, Larry?
Well, some people call me a pack rat, but I like a more sophisticated, preserver of things I use daily.
Okay, that's good. That's a good comeback of it. Okay. But I don't think I've ever seen a 4-foot really like that. Yeah, that's a first time for me.
Is it? Well,
because you're called a yardstick because it's 4 feet.
That's right.
Yeah. My goodness.
So anyhow, I thought it was interesting.
And again, my mom was probably watching this, so I hate to use this, but my goose used to wear out yardsticks on me. So, Mom, if you're watching, you say, yeah, I did. Yeah, but that would have been a rough one because that thing is a good size. That would have reached farther.
Yeah, she could reach you from distance here.
Okay.
Another item I brought in this time was a transistor radio.
Oh, boy.
And transistor radios used to be very popular. Mm-hmm. When they first came out, you pull the antenna out. Yeah. And this is something that almost a thing of the past now.
Yeah, Larry, when you think of transistor radios, does anything kick in your memory banks about listening to transistor radios at certain times of your life?
Well, I enjoyed transistor radios.
I did too.
I'm also a collector of radios, and I have different types of radio, many types of radios, but I always enjoyed the transistor.
Yeah, I did too. You couldn't get a whole lot of stations with them.
No.
But I can remember in summer days, in the evenings, we would have the transistor radio sitting on a picnic table outside, and we could only pick up WBIW. Sure. So that's how I became a St. Louis Cardinal fan, because back in the 60s, that was the only team that, around here you could pick up. So I became a fan through that, but we could only pick up, unless the wind was right or something, then maybe you could get something else, but mainly just local stations. Yeah, boy, there was a lot of them sold over the years.
Yes, there really was. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
And I guess that's really a thing of the past, because I don't think they make them anymore. You folks can let me know if they do, but I haven't seen them sold for a lot of years.
I haven't. Okay. Other items I have here is some milk bottles. Bedford Dairy Company used to be here in Bedford, located on I Street between 16th and 17th. Okay. And I talked to Steve Kopp, and Steve Kopp loaned me some bottles. He was very considerate in loaning me some of the jars from here. So we have here, this is a quart milk bottle, and it says Bedford Dairy on it.
Oh, that's in great condition.
Bedford Dairy, great condition. Of course, you had the little top that fit down in here, a little quart top that fit in here. So we have a quart bottle.
And Larry, I don't know if people can tell on the back there, but what's on the back, the writing on the back of that bottle?
The back of it says this bottle contains a Bedford Dairy Company pasteurized product.
All right.
And so that's what that states on the back.
All right, how many of you folks out there can remember these kind of bottles? I mean, that would be a treat. Do you remember the cream that would be at the top of those one, Larry?
Oh, yes.
That was really good.
The cream was on top. Yes.
Yeah, that was excellent.
Speaking of a creamer, I might move to the other end of the line here. This is a little creamer.
Okay.
A little creamer bottle we have here, and it also says Bedford Dairy on it.
All right. That was for your coffee in the mornings, and that was a neat little bottle there.
So he brought me different sizes. We have here the pint. This is the pint.
Okay.
And on the back of it, it says drink milk.
Okay.
So this is the pint.
Larry, how long was the Bedford Dairy in existence? You have any idea at all?
No.
It was there for a while, wasn't it?
Many years. Yes,
Okay.
it was.
Yeah.
I cannot answer that one.
And while we're on the thinking about dairies, now the one I can remember, and you and I talked about that before we went on the air, but it was on at Lincoln Avenue around 5th Street, 6th Street, somewhere around there.
6th and Lincoln.
And it was triangular in shape, right?
Yes, it was.
If you remember, because
That's right.
That lot was kind of in a triangular shape, so
Yes,
I don't know whether the lot was there and they built the building to match that. I have no idea.
I don't.
But I can remember that so well.
It was built when I came around, so I don't know that one either.
Yeah, that was
Johnson Creamery.
Johnson Creamery, yes, that's right. And then there was another one on 16th Street. That's maybe the one you're thinking about. Then is where the Community Learning Center. I think there's a fitness center there
Thompson.
now. That's the one you're thinking about there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Then we have 2 half-pint jars. They're different shapes, but they're each considered a half a pint. And they also say the same thing on the back. This bottle contains Bedford Dairy pasteurized product.
All right.
So 2 half pints. So Steve Kopp was very willingly let me use these to bring them out here and show you. He was interested when I told him about your show, and so he let me bring those. Okay.
And Larry, when we think about the milk bottles, then I automatically in my mind I think about the milkman. And in the mornings I can remember the milkman coming up, and you had a milk box that you sat on your porch, and they would put the milk in there. It was kind of a little miniature like cooler.
That's what it was.
For the milk.
Yes.
And the milkman and the milk truck, and again, my goodness, has been years since we've experienced that, though.
Yes.
I don't know when it finally ended. That would be good to know someday.
Yes,
but
I can't tell you.
So when the milk bottles were leaving, certainly the milkman was leaving, the milk truck was leaving, the milk boxes were leaving, all that was leaving at the same time.
Right.
It was just more convenient to go into a supermarket, Larry, and buying the milk, right?
It seemed to be, yes.
Yeah. Yes. And then, of course, bottles kind of went out and went to plastic and everything else. So that's just part of our Americana that's leaving us.
Yes, it is. Okay, one other item here is the percolator coffee pots.
Yeah, that one's a miniature one.
This is a miniature one here. I have 3 or 4 sizes, but this one was easy to carry, so I thought I would bring this one. But,
is that like a 2-cup or something?
I think so. Of course, the lid would come off like this.
Yeah.
And we had the
percolators
percolators inside. And
Sure.
you could take this top off here. You could put your coffee in here.
That would have to be about a 1 or 2 cup there. I wouldn't think you would get more than that, but maybe 1 cup. I don't know. That wouldn't be a very heavy coffee drinker, would they?
No, it would not.
Had that on there. Okay.
Okay.
That's still in good condition. Where'd you get that, Larry?
I've had it for years.
Okay.
Wait a minute. This says tells how many cups on this side.
All right.
2 cup.
2 cups. Okay.
2 cup.
Good. We guessed on that one right. All
Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. Another item that I thought was interesting was we used to have hood ornaments on our car. This is an ornament that I had on my first 2 or 3 cars, and back years ago, many cars had hood ornaments.
Yeah.
And this is a hood ornament, and when I traded cars, which was always old cars, I took this ornament off and put it on the next car I had. So it's interchangeable.
That's not Mercury,
No.
I guess. I don't know. But I remember Mercury ornaments there, but I don't know who that one is.
This one, I don't know what it represented. I really don't.
Well, she looks like she's fast.
Yeah, but mine was Chevrolet's, but it was a Chevrolet marker back when I had it.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
but this is something you see very rare anymore.
Yeah, that's very rare. That's
okay.
true.
Another item I brought in here that I thought was interesting. Used to all the families get together in the backyard and we played croquet.
Yeah.
And croquet, I brought, of course, you had 6 croquet mallets, 6 sticks, and you had the number, the paint here to tell you who's first, who gets to play next. That's what all these markers for.
So if you had a white mallet, you got to go first?
Well, no, the white's on each end. That's the border.
Okay. So,
The
that's
blue.
mark. Okay, so the blue got to go first.
Yeah, the blue
okay.
would be first, red, black. That's one way you could do this.
Okay.
And you had each ball would match the color here, the yellow
Yeah.
and the yellow.
Okay.
And so, but you had 6 of these. You had wickets to go through, and we spent many hours in our backyard playing with these things.
Yeah, those little thin little
Wickets.
wickets that you had to knock them through, and then you had
That's right.
some smart aleck or one that just competed way too much.
Yes.
That would hit your ball
Yep.
and knock
it away.
Then they would knock you away, wouldn't it? Then
That's
so it
true.
took you 2 or 3 to get back in
That's
there.
true. That's exactly the way it went.
And I see your wife there going, and that was you. She's pointing the finger at you. She's watching the program, and I'm getting it. So he was a competitor, I guess, right?
I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. And it was a good family entertainment. Really,
Yeah, but as long as you're winning, I guess it was a fun one. Huh?
It's always more fun when you win.
Larry, by the way, was part of the first winning Olytic High School basketball championship, and you were a forward for that team.
Yes,
Larry, were
I
you a
was.
junior
Yes.
by that time?
Yes, I was.
In 1954,
That's
am I
right.
right?
That's right.
And where is that picture at, Larry, by the way? Is that still in the old gym, or did they move that somewhere?
I think it's an Olytic, Dollins Elementary. I think they moved it down there.
Oh, they moved
I
it in
believe
there.
they moved it
Well,
there,
it'd be
yes.
more heated and protected
Yes,
in there. Then.
It was
That's
in the
good.
old Olytic gymnasium, and I think they moved it to Dollins.
Well, I can remember playing bitty ball in the old Olytic gym and seeing that picture, and that was the only one whenever I was playing bitty ball, the only one up
Yes.
there. Now later
Oh,
on,
yes.
Olytic won in 67 and 68.
Right.
But that for years, that was the only one up there. So that was quite a deal when you guys won, didn't
Yes,
it?
it was. It was the first sectional for Olytic.
Yeah, and you guys should have won 2 in a row, but I guess we won't
Well,
go there
yes,
with that.
we thought so, but okay. Now, one other item I brought here is the old canning jar. This is something that is just not around too much. You can buy a few of these, and you can see a few, but this is the gallon. Of course, you had the quarts, the pints, but the old ball, perfect Mason canning jar.
Sure.
And I always thought they were interesting. Used many times. The lids like this.
Mm-hmm. You know, and the old canning jar, I mean, that's I can remember my people here talking about how expensive those jars were getting. I mean, it used to be pretty cheap, I guess, but boy, they went up in price, and that really affected a lot of people. But the gallon one you don't see as much of that as you did some of the smaller ones. So that's true. That's unique.
Yes, it is.
And that's in great condition there.
It is great condition, yes. I actually have several of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you ever can?
No, my mother was a favorite canner, and I certainly enjoyed what she canned.
Oh my goodness, folks! You know, and this is going to jar the memory banks. But when you go back and you think about the green beans that were canned, the corn, the pickles, you know, those pickles used to be excellent. The different kind of pickles, I remember.
Yes.
But boy, once you get used to that, it's hard going back to store bought, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I mean, there just wasn't anything like that canned goods from the garden. It really made it.
That's very true. Okay.
Well, now, did we cover everything over on
I think we
there?
have everything over here, other than some pictures we have.
Okay, well, we got some pictures that we want to show you, and this is one, and this came from the museum, I think you said.
No, this belonged to Steve Kopp. This is
I'm
Steve
sorry,
Kopp's, and he
Steve
loaned it
Kopp.
to me, and he actually says, I keep this hanging in my home. So,
well, I can see why it's a beautiful picture.
It
Now,
is a
tell us a
beautiful
little bit
picture.
about what we're looking at here, Larry.
well, this is, it's called, there you can see the Modeling Baking Company. This is where Mullis Petroleum is located today on J Street, along about 10th and J. It became, the first one was a PRINZ, honey crust bread is what it was. And the trucks you see lined up there, these are delivery trucks that you can see lined up there. That's what it was first called, and then it went to Honey Crust Bakery. Honey Crust Bakery was the one that I remember the most. Then it went to Colonial.
Right.
Went to Colonial, and then there was one more after that was Wholesome. Went to Wholesome. Steve told me that his grandfather moved here in the 20s and worked for the bakery for about 38 years. And he said I think he retired there. But he enjoyed it. And someone else told me that a few years ago, this was the largest bakery between Indianapolis and Louisville.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Well, when you look at this, and again, you may have already mentioned it, by the Mullis Petroleum. That's where
Yes,
that's currently.
that's the
is.
Mullis.
Oh, I can remember going by down that street, Larry, and after they're making that
Oh,
bread,
yes.
man, oh, my
Oh,
goodness,
yes,
the smell
okay.
was tremendous.
Okay.
But the old trucks in here, did he have an idea about when this picture was taken?
Well, no, we don't. We thought by the trucks, those trucks there was probably late 20s or early 30s. That's kind of what we thought. Probably
Okay.
some of these people that knows antique cars would probably pin that down, but we were trying to, it's close to that. And if you look at that picture, at the top of the picture there,
Okay, we
you
can
see
bring it right back up
you
here.
see some smokestacks sticking up over the middle of it there, and that is the old Bedford Ice and Cold Company that used to be back over in behind that.
Oh,
do
okay.
you remember the old?
No, I don't.
You don't remember
Yeah, I
that,
remember
yes.
the ice company. Well,
Yes.
no, it was closer to town to where the
Yes.
ice remember. But I don't know if you folks can see this pretty well, but right up here is where you're talking about, right?
Yeah,
The
right in here.
smokestack.
You see these smokestacks back here, and we think that is from the Bedford Home and Ice Coal Company.
I'll be okay. And I don't remember ever seeing a picture of that area, but
No,
but
I
at least we
haven't.
got the smokestacks on
Yeah,
here.
right. And also you can see a steeple. Looks like a church off here to the
Okay,
left.
okay.
And we have not, the steeple is down here located here.
Okay.
We haven't pinpointed that one. He wasn't real sure which church it was, but it looks like a steeple from a church there is what it looks like.
And again, we don't know the year that this picture was taken, but we're guessing that it
Right.
was. Okay.
According to the trucks there, we're guessing late 20s, early 30s.
And then somebody would be able to, again, that's into antique
Yes,
vehicles,
I'm
might be
sure
able
they
to
could.
identify, get us closer on the years here. But
Right.
on the phone, you know, I can remember when we did, and it was a very popular program, and folks, I still want to do another program, I promise you, on the community groceries. I just haven't had time to get it all researched yet, but that was one of our popular programs. People would talk about, and I remember Perry Mullis, I may talk about this a little bit too, that whenever sliced bread came into, I mean, whenever they had the old saying, you know, as great as or greater than sliced bread or something
Greatest
like
thing
that.
since sliced bread.
Greater thing since sliced bread. This was something that just revolutionized back then.
Yes.
Whenever all of a sudden sliced bread came into
Yes.
being, and of course by this time, then I guess they would have sliced bread. I
Yes,
guess.
yes.
Yeah. So that was a big thing that hit the market back then. It's hard to think, oh wow, why would that made it different? But it would have back then.
Yes,
You
it
didn't
would
have to
have.
take the time to slice it.
That's right.
It's okay there. Okay, beautiful photo there of the, and I thank you for bringing that in. Larry, I was watching the other night PBS, which I like to watch a lot, and they had a special on Johnny Carson. And brought back memories of myself watching Johnny Carson for a lot of years. I used to love to watch Johnny Carson. And remember my dad watching the monologue. He would had to get up early and go to work, but he would sit and he'd watch Johnny Carson's monologue, and then he'd go to bed after the monologue. But after I watched this program on Johnny Carson, a great program, that it just really made me miss Johnny Carson.
Yeah. That was my mother-in-law's favorite program.
Oh, well, I believe it was for a lot of people. It really made me miss Johnny Carson because his wit and humor, and I don't think there's ever been a talk show host greater than Johnny Carson. That's just my own personal opinion. But when you watch them, I remember just recently watching Dean Martin, some clips from his old variety show. And we could go on and on these, but you know, when we watch this again, it start making us miss things.
It does.
And so now, of course, I've been digging around to try to find, you know, Dean Martin, Johnny Carson, old clips because of these things. But these things we kind of take for granted. We talked about last time, like the train whistles that we used to hear that we no longer hear in the community. I remember we could stress this a lot further. We could think about birds that we used to hear that sometime maybe we don't ever hear. I used to hear the whippoorwill a lot more. Used to hear the Bob White, quail. I used to hear that all the time growing up, and I don't hear that anymore, rarely. And these things, these sights and sounds are things that identify a lot of our boyhood, our childhood, and for years, and then they're all of a sudden they're gone.
They're gone.
Now, it's sad when we think that the birds and the animals that have disappeared.
Yes.
But then we start thinking, well, Norm, we could take this further. Then I can remember these certain buildings, which you and I are preservationists. So we are one of these kooks that we like to preserve buildings. We like to preserve areas because, again, you and I know the importance of preservation, of being able to go out and actually visually see what we've been talking about in history was in a photo, or being able to touch, again, for generations. Because once that building's gone, once these things that you brought are gone, then they're gone. I mean, these bottles, whether they're 1950s, 60s, I don't know when they were.
Yeah.
But when they're gone, you can replicate these, you can make reproductions, but these authentic pieces are gone. So it makes us think about the buildings that we got to see when we were growing up. A lot of them gone now. And then it ultimately, and I think it's what's going to happen to my viewers out there, and maybe one of the reasons why they like watching this program, I guess, is that then it brings us to people that no longer are here.
Yes.
And then that brings a little bit of sadness, but a little bit of a smile too, because then we start remembering not only things, because when you bring about this mallet, you know what jumps to my mind? Playing with the neighborhood kids and the families out on those summer evenings back in the late 1950s and 1960s. Every time when we bring something like this, it brings a memory. And these people, and it mainly centers around people, and a lot of these are no longer with us anymore.
We were talking about disappearing things, and when I was trying to gather some of these, someone told me, said one thing that's disappearing that we couldn't actually bring here, and families used to visit each other and get together just for visitations, to visit our family and friends, and this is something that's disappearing also.
Yeah, and it's sad. You know, we talked about this. A person stopped me and they said, Norm, you know, we used to, how everybody would sit out in their neighborhoods, and neighbors actually visited with each other back then. Well, we didn't have air conditioning. Air conditioning really changed the way we live, because now people, it was too hot to sit in that house in those evenings. I mean, you sat outside. And so you had lawn furniture that we could have gone on just bringing in old lawn furniture if we'd had room, that is disappearing from our lives. With the old porch swing, which still is around, but that used to be more prominent because people used to sit outside on the porch a lot more.
Yes.
So air conditioning changed the way we live in a lot of ways. And then we have cable television, satellite television. In the summertime, you only had reruns. There wasn't anything to sit and watch anyway. So that changed the way we were.
That's true.
But a lot of these things are going to revoke memories, Larry, that of not only of things and places, but of people. And I know for you, that many of you already, I know, talking about this. One thing that we can remember that's changed a lot since you and I were teenagers and kids is a trip to the gasoline station. And I want to show some photos that Larry brought in of old gasoline stations. Now that's been a big part of our life as well, and there's still remnants of them around, but not in the say. Now they're convenience stores. Whenever you think of gasoline stations, Larry, and you brought in a picture here. Let's go ahead and start with this one. Where was this gasoline station at here?
This is Ray Wagner Station that was located on 13th and Lincoln.
Okay.
And there's still a station there today, but it's, as you say, it's a different type of station. When you were talking, we used to think of gas stations, and the attendant would come out, he would clean your windshield, check your oil, put your gas in. So self-serve changed that.
Yeah, I can remember watching old Andy Griffith and Goober's gasoline station there, and how they would come out. There was only 2 pumps, and I think that was the only gasoline station in town. But they would come out and they'd wipe your windshield, front for you, and if you asked them to, they would even do the back for you.
That's right.
And like I say, check your oil.
2 types of gasoline, regular and ethyl. That was
regular and ethyl.
That was the 2 types of gasoline.
Right, yeah. And I thought the only Ethel was on I Love Lucy. You remember Ethel there?
Oh, yes.
Fred and Ethel. I used to love both of them, too, by the way.
Right, yeah.
The old gasoline station, you remember you have the 2 pumps, even though that this gasoline station, and that I'm going to hold this back up here. Of course, you got the service garage here, but there's a pump right over here that would have been kerosene. Kerosene, yeah.
Kerosene.
Okay, 13th and Lincoln. Right, I can say there's still a spot there of that. There's another gasoline station here. Larry, that you can give us a little bit of information about?
Spur station. When I started driving, if you can see up here in this point up here, it says 17.9, and that's what a gallon of gas was when I started.
Boy.
It was 17.9 for many years. It says Save with Spur. This station is located on I Street, about 13th, between 12th and 13th and I. The building is still there today, but it's used for different purposes. This station here, when you would go in, they would give you a glass or some kind of a dish many times.
Yeah.
And the sign there says that if you come in on Saturday, they would fill up your gas tank for $1.
My goodness. Were they lined up to have that
Well,
back in?
that was a very, very busy station at one time. And it's not on a highway.
Imagine.
It was located on I Street, but that was a very, very busy station there. Many people bought gas there.
But that was pretty popular.
It was.
And what is there now?
Fellow, he collects old cars, trucks, and things, and that's, it sits right in behind him there. And I'm not sure it's closed. There's no business there now. It's all enclosed.
Okay.
But there's a fellow there that I think he restores old cars and old trucks. It's in behind there.
All right.
And so.
Whenever you were talking about, I can remember this too, if you came in and you like filled up your gas, or you had 8 gallons of gas, something like that, you used to get like a glass or something.
Yes.
I can remember that we still, my mother still has possession of Phillips 66, so when the station was over on 5th and Lincoln.
Yes.
And I guess if you got 8 gallons or you filled up your tank, then you got a glass, and then you collected several. They would have like every week they would have something new.
They would, yes.
But then again, that brings something to my memory. Do you remember the S&H green stamps?
Oh, yes. S&H, top value.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And if you spent so much in the grocery store, Larry, it seemed like that you got these stamps, and that these stamps, then you collected them in a book. I can remember the books.
Yes.
And then because sometimes you wouldn't get them all lined, they would be but then after you collected so many books, you could trade them in to get it like an item, maybe like a transistor radio or something.
Right.
Did you ever collect them?
Yes, I did. Matter of fact, one item I have was one time I collected, it was, I don't remember if it was S&H or top value, but I got a little 50-foot wind-up tape.
Is that right, dude? Collecting those stamps.
Still have it today.
I just wonder how many out there remember those S&H value stamps, those books there. I can remember where it used to be old Midtown Grocery, and I don't remember what that was at one time whenever we collected, but I remember that Mom would go there and collect these stamps, and they would put them in these books, and that went on that was a popular thing for several years.
I think the S&H were the green stamps. They were green, and the top value was a yellow type, bright yellow.
Do you remember what grocery store you went to get the top value?
No, there were several back then. I can't remember. I don't remember, not which stores, no.
Yeah, when we have an emergence, you had the old community groceries, then they started fading out, then you went to kind of smaller grocery stores.
Yes.
And there were several of them around, but you know, when you think about it now, Larry, in town, the size of Bedford, there's not that many grocery stores anymore.
That's true.
You know, the real mega markets have kind of, taken over, haven't they?
Yes, they have. One I remember, some of the older folks may remember, was called Pay and Packet. Do you remember Pay and Packet?
On 5th Street?
On 5th Street.
Yes.
Russell Owens started that, and I think he actually started on 4th, and then he moved over on M Street. I can remember him being on M Street between 3rd and 4th, and then he went to Pay and Packet on 5th Street.
Okay, that's the one I can remember on 5th Street, and now there's an IGA there, but still there. But I can remember the old Pay and Packet.
Yes,
sure,
and
was
he
there
changed
for a lot
it.
of years.
Russ Owens owned that, and he went to IGA himself from Pay and Packet.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, there's another gasoline station here.
Okay, that's the Reardon gas station, and this was only about a block from the Spur station that we were looking at just a few minutes ago. This station here is completely gone now, and I can just barely remember when they were selling gas there. This was a very old station here, but it is all gone today, and it's called Reardon Filling Station. Okay,
North I, about 10th or 11th Street, it says here.
Yes.
You know, this gasoline station, again, there's a uniqueness about this gasoline station when I look at it, because look at the limestone.
Yes.
That's around there, so it's a beautiful, but the building's not even there now, right?
No, it's all gone. It's all there is the base floor, just a floor, a concrete floor.
But folks, you know, we're in the land of limestone, and again, we've been very blessed. Whenever you go outside of the area, I mean, when you're raised around all the limestone, you get taking it for granted, but then you go in other places and you don't get to see these kind of structures that we have with the limestone very often. That's unique right there.
Someone was in the museum this week and said, I was in Washington, D.C., and I couldn't believe all of the limestone that came from Bedford from the building.
Right, and there was a lot of it there, too. I made a trip one Saturday, and I want to thank Claude Kern for letting me have access to these following pictures. You're going to see up on your screen right now the picture. This is located near the dive school in that area, the old dive school, the Breckenridge area. And Claude Kern was nice enough to let me take pictures of the gasoline station here that has been restored. This gasoline station, he told me, was at one time located on Washington Avenue, and it was torn down, and it's been preserved in that way, and that's a great thing, because in the years, Larry, this again you can go there and you can actually see visually what the old gasoline station. So I thank Claude for doing this for the community. But again, you can see he lovingly and painfully, somebody reconstructed this just the way it was. It was like a log cabin. I'm sure you had to probably mark every block and everything that when you tore it down, and then you put it back together. But again, this was actually on Washington Avenue across from Cosner's, around 23rd, 24th Street, right in there in the area.
Right. That's true.
And look at the old pump. Now, this is going to be a reminder. What I get a kick when I look at this picture of this pump here is that the gallons, you have the price there, so that you can run that up, and then you got how many gallons. I guess that you're not going to go to 100, so that would still be used today. And I can't say you people are going to be able to see what the price on that pump was at that time, but I don't know whether that was actually that whenever they finally removed the pump, this was actually the price on it. But anyway, there was a price on it that was paid for that.
My eyesight may be failing, but I believe it says 17 like the picture there did. I believe it says 17.
Did it say 17.9?
I believe it
okay,
says,
you guys will be able to see it better, right?
Yes, I believe it's 17.
About 17.9, okay, then.
I believe it is.
All right. Now, do you remember the thing that's right up above then, Larry, where the price, what you're going to pay, what in the world is that circular thing up there? Do you remember that? I remember that, but I don't remember what that was used for. You have any idea?
I can't answer
but
that.
But you remember seeing it too for years.
I remember those, yes, I do.
Okay, our guests out there, our
those.
people are watching, they're going to be able to remember that, and maybe they can let me know. I can't remember what that, but I can remember seeing it. Okay, there I'm just kind of walking around the building and looking at it again, a fine job of restoration in there, and I had a chance to. I want to make sure we got a picture of that, because that's where the oil cans, Larry, used to be. Whenever you'd get a quart of oil, those were the different kind of oil cans that was used there, and then you'd take this plunger. You remember the plunger that you would put down in that oil can?
Yes, I do.
And then you would put it in there, and it was metal, and it was so that's something you don't see very well either. So I took a picture of that.
Actually, used to have little metal baskets that you could carry the oil in, about 6 quarts in each basket. You could carry them, yes.
Right, that's true. And I think that I've seen one of them here just recently. So
I have one.
Okay, we have any more pictures of that, or is that's it on that one? Okay. Now, Larry, you and I are history hunters. In fact, they're nicknaming me that now in the community, Norm the History Hunter Taylor. And I've been called worse again, so I kind of like that name. But anyway, I like going on the weekends and looking for history. And this show has actually been in progress for a long time. So my wife and I went out and we take pictures. This is one of the areas, Larry, that has disappeared from but I wish it was back, the brick roads.
Yes.
I love the old brick roads. There was just a beauty about them. Now, some communities actually are bringing the brick roads back because of the beauty of them, but we still, folks, on the weekend, whenever you watch these shows, you can go out and find us. This was at the Moss Petroleum, Perry, one of his buildings, the old train depot in between J and I Street. Is that correct?
Milwaukee.
Okay, old Milwaukee. They've been partially restoring this structure here.
BRI started that, yes.
Okay. They put on a new roof.
Yes, Jamie Harris was in the BRI. He actually started that project.
Okay. A beautiful, beautiful building. I always thought this would have been a nice restaurant or something someday. But it is located there. You'll be able to find it. And it still you can see the brick roads like you see in the picture that dotted our landscape for so many years. So this was one of the best places where you can still see the old brick roads in Bedford there. And I think I've got another picture here. That's on the other side of the building. You can see, again, a great picture of the old brick roads. And thankfully, Perry's kept this brick just so we can get an idea of what the brick road looked like. Well, now, I just want to leave it just for a second on the brick road and, again, about the train depot, because do you remember, Larry, about what year this was built, the old train depot? I've seen this somewhere. Was it early 1900s or
I don't
somewhere
recall
around there?
that year on it, but we
I
did.
don't either.
Might comment there. We did look at that building for when we were looking for a museum building.
Okay.
And we thought the possibility there, but it didn't work out because of parking and like that. But it didn't work out.
I hope that it's restored. It was used for like something over the years. Was it Santa Helpers or something?
Santa's Helpers was right there. That's right.
But our focus right now is on a brick road there because, again, of the beauty of these. So I started thinking, okay, is there anywhere? I called the street department and asked them kind of when they started being paved over and this type of thing, and they were very helpful. But he said, well, Norm, the brick roads are still there. They're still all over the place, but we've paved over it with blacktop. So I started going around. Now, see, I don't have much of a life, I guess. But again, they call me the history hunter, and that's why I do. So I started looking for, and see if I could find any parts of the old brick roads. So this location, you can see there, folks, that if you look close enough around, you'll see like potholes or places around town that you can actually start seeing the brick exposed. And this is what we did one Saturday. We went around trying to find locations where the brick was coming through just to see a portion of the brick roads. And we found this, and I think the next picture there is going to be seeing, yes, the location. This where the pothole, and I said, well, I brought my wife, I said, look at this, and it looked like just a pothole. Yeah. I said, yeah, it is, but look what's underneath it. The brick, like to me, was finding gold. Because, again, at 14th and L Street, I found, again, just a glimpse of this brick, this pothole here, and you can see that underneath there is brick. Now, that doesn't mean, well, I know the people watch the show, they're going to understand what I'm talking about here. To me, it was exciting getting to see the brick under there. And folks, if you ever don't have anything to do, go around and see if you can find some of the brick exposed there. Because, again, these brick roads at one time, years ago, would have been all around Bedford. And a day whenever we would add horse and buggy and the beginning of the automobile. So whenever you see these brick roads, then if you let your imagination go with you, you'll see the old horse and buggies, you'll see the beginning of the automobile coming on these brick roads. You know where I'm going with that, don't you, Larry?
Good example of that is around the Bedford Square. At one time, the brick around the Bedford Square. And when they come in and do construction on the square, we can see from the museum, and they actually dig up some of the old brick roads. But now, I've had that same thought that you had there, and I tried to find out when some of the brick roads was covered up in around the square, but I have not come up with the dates.
I haven't either.
I think I can remember the brick on the east side of the square. I think I can. I keep telling myself I can remember that the brick on the east side of the square.
Well, hopefully you and I will. Well, let's keep open to it, and maybe someday we can kind of find out when they started the paving. Now, the information I was getting on the brick roads was that the brick wasn't really as much. I thought it would be because of repairing the brick, constant repair that would have been so cost effective. That's the reason why they started paving, but I don't think that was the reason. But anyway, I would love to see some of the brick roads back myself, because it was just a part of going, and I think there's just a beauty to it. And there's actually some communities now that are starting to bring the brick roads back, so that's kind of exciting too.
Yes.
Okay, I started missing railroads, and I started missing trains. And I even liked it when I was a kid, electric trains. That was a treat to have electric trains. So I went on a search for a caboose, and deputy sheriff, he said, hey, I know where one's at, go take a picture of it. It's in Seymour, by the old silos there. When you go through town, over on the right, you'll see the corn silos, you'll see a caboose. And even if there are trains, and there's still trains around in some of the communities, you can see but you don't see the caboose anymore.
True.
And so this picture that you're seeing right now is the caboose. It's over in Seymour. Once you go through on the main road, if you're over right by the silos, you'll see this caboose there. And I want to just get a couple or three pictures of the caboose, because even though we were still seeing the trains go through, we weren't seeing the caboose became obsolete.
Yes.
But how many times? Because when you saw the caboose, Larry, what did that signify to you?
The end.
The end. Yes, that's right. You knew finally. I can remember people, folks, and you'll remember this, sitting there on 16th Street trying to get through town. And the lead one that was nearest the train would a lot of times be outside, and he's looking down the train track, and you know what he's looking for? The caboose. Because the caboose finally said that the track was going to be cleared.
I think now, I believe this is right, in Salem at the Hayes Center, I think they have a caboose there they moved in the last 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, because there's a railroad museum or something there.
And I think that they have a caboose there. I believe they do have.
Okay, good. But I mean, I always, as a kid, I would have loved to have been able to ride on that caboose at the end. I've always dreamed about doing it. Never got to do that. But the caboose meant the end of the train.
That's right.
And you brought a picture of when we're talking now here about trucks and trains and railroads. Well, we have a picture here of
this is a picture of Yawkey Crossing, which is located between Bedford and Mitchell. And it has some information on the front of it there. It was one's called Sinking Spring. Sinking Spring, that was the name of it.
Not sinking.
Sinking.
Okay.
And also, this is where the town of Juliet was actually started there for one time.
Okay, Juliet.
Juliet.
And the town, and where was this at again, Larry?
It's on the front of the picture there. It tells you that information.
The town of Juliet, of the New Albany and Salem Railroad for a time. I don't remember even hearing about Juliet. Yawkey Crossing is there in Mitchell, in between Bedford and Mitchell.
That's right.
And there, in that area.
That's
so
right.
in there.
Right.
Wow. Okay, that's a great picture there. And again, all the railroad tracks are being ripped up. So one of these days, we won't even know where the railroads were coming through, where these trains even came through at.
That's true.
Okay. I'm doing some research on when Buffalo Bill was in town, and of course, whenever they would bring in the circus or they'd bring in a lot of these acts, a long time, where the fairgrounds, where the old limestone buildings, where all this stuff would have been at would have been near these railroad tracks, because you wanted to build them close to where, or they built the railroad tracks close there or something, but you would have had to have them close.
This is when I realized I'm getting older, because I can remember the circus coming to town on the trains. And
goodness, yeah.
They would unload there at the Monon Station in Bedford, and they would unload the animals in the cages, and they'd have a little parade, and it would go to the Hitchcock Showgrounds out in the south end of Bedford, and they would set up their tents there, and I was a young boy at the time, and what they would do is they would let us go out there and work all day to help them set up, and we get a free ticket to get in.
Oh, is that right? So you did that?
I did that.
Yeah, well, I can see why. I can remember that when I was a kid. I was probably only about 5 or 6, but I can remember jerking on an elephant's tail. And man, when he turned around, believe me, that I never jerked on another elephant's tail. I've only jerked on one elephant's tail in my life, folks, and that was when I was a little kid, so don't hold that against me. But I can remember a parade, a circus parade, at least one or two myself, so I'm there with you. A friend of mine, Kenny Phillips, that has Premier Construction on Lincoln Avenue now. I was looking for an old telephone booth, because I think, my goodness, look at the old telephone booths that we had been in our lives. In fact, back in the 1950s, Larry, and you might be able, there was a craze, or maybe it was early in the 1950s, there was a craze where you could see how many teenagers you could get in a telephone booth.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Now, I'm not saying you participated in that. But,
no, I did not participate, but even a hand, you was counted in there. Any part of the body they could get in, that was counted a person.
And again, well, we do crazy things when we're teenagers, but, you know, telephone booths weren't very big, Larry. How many teenagers could you get in a telephone booth, by the way?
I don't know, but the numbers they came up with was unbelievable.
You know, maybe Guinness Book of Record has a record of that or something, of how many, but I remember trying to, and I think, well, I'm not going to be the first one to go in there, that's for sure, because when you try to jam all these teenagers, I think, boy, if I went out, it's going to be hard to get out. And then I could just see in my mind people just smash their faces smashed against the glass there. But the old telephone booth is a part of our Americana that now, you used to see them on street corners, and now they're gone. And I can remember back in when I used to love Superman comics and Batman comics. I used to like comics, and boy, I could do an old show on comics. I'll do that one of these days, because there's a lot of people that grew up reading comics. But Superman would go and change in a phone booth. back in the 30s and 40s. And when I got older, and I think, now Superman, how did you do that? Because all I saw was just glass. I think, people are going to see you change. Why did you go to a phone booth? But anyway, Kenny Phillips was good enough to show me the picture of the phone booth. I've let me in because there's that old wooden phone booth that is in his site there, his office. Oh. And it's just beautiful. It was in the old, not AT&T, it was Bell phone back over by the old library. What street would that be? I don't remember
14th and K.
14th and K. Thank you. And it was sitting in there for years. And it's been restored, and it is beautiful. If you ever go by there, Kenny would be glad to let you go in there. And I took his picture. The old phone that was in this old phone booth was in there, and I just got a kick out of it. There's another great picture of the phone booth and the old phone booth or phone book that is disappearing. And my wife got tired of looking at it, so she just locked me in the phone booth, as you can see in there. Okay, but what a great. The old wooden phone booth is a part of our Americana that is leaving there, but many of us was in there. I think that's about it on the pictures. I think, Maria, I think that's it. So, wow, Larry, there's so much that people are going to the people are out there. I had one man that stopped me and he said, Norm, you talked about what you did if you didn't have a bottle opener. He said, I got a story to tell you. And Paul, I'm going to tell this story. He said, I got stitches because of this, but I tried to do it with my teeth. And I said, I knew somebody out there. I remember the people doing that, trying to open them with their teeth. And sure enough, because you're desperate to get to that pop. And he told me about how many stitches he got out there. But people were good enough to come up and say, yes, I can remember these old things. And I didn't think about them until you started doing these shows, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yes. Larry, heard many people talking about the knee-high products from the last program. That's been brought up to me several times.
Yeah. Well, Larry, I appreciate you bringing all this stuff. We don't have as much to carry out this time.
No,
I'm thankful for that. Well, that wore me out last time carrying all that. But with the typewriter was enough for last time we had on there. But Larry, thank you. It sure has stirred a lot of memories, and maybe down the road we'll even do a third show when we think about all the other stuff that we can get together. We'll maybe do a third show some of these days. I don't know, but it sure has been fun to reminisce and go back and look at the things that are leaving the landscape of our lives, and there's a lot of it. And when we start thinking about it, we sure miss it.
I have enjoyed it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, my guest has been Larry King from the museum and. Old Bearcat, an old dive bomber, and I won't say old, young dive bomber Bearcat. But Larry, thank you again for bringing that stuff in. Well, you've been reminiscing with us on the things that are leaving the landscape of our lives. We hope you've enjoyed the program, and we'll try to bring you a lot more programs in the future that are concerning our great history of our county and of our state. And we're here to preserve that. This has been the Indiana History Project. I'm your host, Norm Taylor. Thank you for watching.